Behind me is the Saturn V Rocket, the biggest rocket in the world even to this day. It was built in the 60s, and the leader that led this development effort was Wernher Von Braun, the famous German and American scientist. The story I want to tell you is about mistakes. If you look at these 5 engines behind me, each one produces 1.5 million pounds of thrust. It's a huge monster of an engine. When they were running a test flight on this first stage of the rocket behind me, there was a technician who was the last man on the pad that night before the test the next morning. And he wanted to make sure that everything was just right for the test. So he went around with a screwdriver and a wrench and tools to make sure that every nut and bolt on the entire rocket was tight and secure, and that the test would be a success in the morning. Unfortunately for him, the center rocket that I'm pointing to right there, that engine is stable. The other 4 rockets that you see, they actually gimbal and turn, and that's how you steer the rocket. The next day they have the launch of the test, and the rocket goes off and it starts to go off course, and the controllers at Kennedy Space Center are trying to correct it, and they're sending computer signals, and the rocket just will not respond. Finally, they have to hit the self-destruct button, blow the whole thing up. Everyone's trying to figure out what went wrong. That technician went home and thought, you know, I wondered if I tightened the wrong thing. I wonder if I made that engine too stable. And so he went to his supervisor went to the manager, and eventually the story gets up to Wernher Von Braun, and they check it out, and they think that's what caused the problem. So Wernher Von Braun says, I want to see you, the manager, and that technician tomorrow morning, and we're going to have an all-hands meeting, and I want you in the front row. The next day, he brings the technician up on the stage, and he says, you are the one who caused that rocket to go off course. And for that, there's a big problem. Millions of dollars of hardware. He says, you came forward and you told us that you might be the cause of this rocket going off course on the test, and we believe that's true. But you also came forward and told us you didn't have to do that. So he said, I got 2 things. And he reached down beside him on the stage, and he had a brown paper bag. And out of the bag, he pulled a bottle of champagne. And he gave the technician the bottle of champagne and said, this is for your honesty and for saving us the time and effort to figure out what went wrong. It probably would have taken us 3 months. We would have figured out, but you saved us all that labor and all that effort and all that time. So here's a bottle of champagne to celebrate your honesty and your candor. But he said the second thing is, you are not allowed to ever touch one of my rockets again. Now, why do I tell you this story? Because when we say, for the sake of innovation, that we are willing to have mistakes, that's true and it's not true. Poor performance is poor performance. But this is a great example, and that is when you have to balance an error or mistakes versus the values of the organization. Then it's a tough call. And in the case of Wernher Von Braun, he actually was able to achieve both. He said the value of the organization is that we're honest and open with one another, we admit our mistakes, but at the same time he sends the message, poor performance is not accepted.